What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So I hope that everyone had a happy and safe holiday weekend, and I hope that everyone has a safe and happy upcoming New Year's holiday weekend upcoming. All right. So I broke my routine today. I decided to look at some of these sports shows. I looked at a little bit of First Things First, and they're talking about whether or not LeBron James deserved any blame for the Lakers this year. I'm not going to go into that. We've talked about that ad nauseum, right? But it's something that he said, Nick Wright, about LeBron that I have some issues with. He was talking about how this year LeBron is averaging 27.7 rebounds and 7 assists, um, which is his highest scoring average in quite some time. He was talking about how he's shooting the basketball more than he has in a decade. And despite all of this, the last 10 games, he's been averaging 38 and 8 practically in the last 10 games or so, leading the NBA in scoring. And that he's a top five player at least in the NBA. But despite that, the Lakers are losing, which is pretty much putting up this narrative that once again, he needs more help. Now, I don't want to downplay what LeBron James is accomplishing. Okay, it's remarkable, but let's look at this a little bit closer here. Even though he is in his 19th season and he's been extraordinarily durable, it's difficult to compare him to players of the past who played 19 and 20 years or 21 seasons because, in addition to their long NBA careers, they also played college. So they had a little bit more wear and tear on them by the time they were in their 18th and 19th and 20th seasons. LeBron is still only 36 years old, albeit for just another 2 days, but he's still younger than generally anybody else that were in their 19th season in the NBA, except for Kobe Bryant, I believe. And Kobe might have played longer had he not had that Achilles rupture. You know what I'm saying? Um, and he had a lot of other injuries in his career. But anyway, the points are impressive. But let's not forget that, as with any Russell Westbrook team, the Lakers lead the NBA in pace. So you're going up and down the court, you're getting more rebound opportunities, you're getting more scoring opportunities. Not to mention the fact that LeBron is not really focusing on ball distribution and facilitating like he has in recent years. He's focusing more on scoring, at least in most spurts. Now, there are moments where he does facilitate a little bit, but he's been focusing more on scoring. You add that into the fact that their pace is so fast, and that's contributing to his high scoring. Where in the past, LeBron's teams are often in the bottom third of the NBA when it comes to pace. Matter of fact, some of those great championship teams, often scored in the 80s and 90s. Remember those Heat teams? They weren't scoring like 115, 120 points a game. Their pace was a lot slower. But if you remember, LeBron was putting up the same numbers or close to it, which is showing you that in some ways LeBron's numbers are sort of inflated. Okay, the same way that people talk about how Wilt's 50 points and 25 rebounds would not be what they were back then today or in the 90s, which is very true. I think if Wilt played in the 90s, that 50 and 25 season would have been more like 38 and 16 or something. Still tremendous, but not quite the same. Well, that's what I'm saying with LeBron. Look, I'll give you an example I'm talking about. In 1999, Karl Malone won the MVP award. And when you look at his numbers as opposed to today, they don't look that impressive. 23.8 points, something like 9.4 rebounds, 4.5 assists. Utah was tied with the best record in NBA, 37-13 in a 50 games season. But this is the thing, that was the lowest scoring season in the history of the NBA since the advent of the shot clock in 54-55, right? And when you take Karl Malone's numbers, the Utah Jazz only averaged 93 points a game that year. When you take Karl Malone's numbers and you adjust them to what the Lakers are doing as far as scoring and you proportionalize everything, then in today's NBA, Karl Malone at age 35, 36 would be averaging 28 points, 11 rebounds, 5.5 assists at the power forward position. Now, doesn't that sound a lot more dominating than 23.8 and 9? It's that's what happens when you're playing a faster pace. Your numbers get inflated. Also, LeBron's numbers, those points, they aren't impactful. And the main reason for that is because they're not stopping anybody. Yeah, LeBron can get a bucket, but then on the other end, Brooklyn's getting 2 buckets. You know what I'm saying? LeBron scores, then Brooklyn scores. LeBron scores, and then, Golden State scores, going a 6-0 run. It's not impacting the game. Like, look, Jerry Stackhouse, if I'm not mistaken, I think in 2000, 2001, I believe he led the NBA in total points that year with the Detroit Pistons. Yet, Detroit had one of the worst records in the NBA. I can't remember the record offhand anymore, but it was atrocious. It was a terrible record. I mean, yeah, he was scoring, but I mean, it wasn't the most impactful scoring. And I'm not saying LeBron is stat padding. I'm not saying that. And what he's doing is still very impressive. I think LeBron's top 10 at this point. Um, I'll give you another example I'm talking about with pace. Kevin Love led the league in rebounding, I think, something like twice. One year he averaged like 26 and 15 or 24 and 15 or something like that. But the Timberwolves led the NBA in pace back in 2000, the mid 2000 teens. They led the NBA in pace, which explained why, with all those extra opportunities, Kevin Love was, especially that version of Kevin Love, he was 270, played more in the post, could bang. That's why he was getting so many rebounds. Then you take him to Cleveland, he loses weight, he alters his game, so he's playing on the perimeter. Now he goes from averaging 26 and 15 to 17 and 8, 17 and 9. You see what I'm saying? Cleveland had a slower pace. He's not in the paint as much. He's on the perimeter. He's not getting as many rebounds. So a lot of this you have to look at. That's why I'm always saying this, y'all. Take numbers. Numbers are important, but sometimes there's more to numbers than what meets the eye. Sometimes you can look at a guy like World Be Free. He's averaging 30 points a game for the then San Diego Clippers, right? And then you say to yourself, well, why is he not in the MVP conversation? Well, because every 30 points per game isn't the same. They're not equal. Uh, Dominique Wilkins scoring 30 points a game is different and more impactful than World Be Free doing it. Not saying he's not a great player too, but every 30-point game isn't the same. Every 25 points ain't the same. Every triple double isn't the same, as we know with Russell Westbrook. So anyway, that's my opinion. Tell me what you guys think.